Life's not fair, is it?
I hate the phrase, life's not fair. I hate that complaints of unfairness are often characterised as whining, because you should be allowed to point out when a situation isn't fair. Life's not fair is often said by people who benefit from something being unfair, those who exploit others, screw others over. And my thinking's always been, if life's not fair, why should any of us make it worse? Why should we add to the unfairness? If life isn't fair, then I think the onus is on those with the power to make something fair to, do that. But the thing is, I disagree with the theory outright. Life is neither fair nor unfair. Life is life, it has no bias. It is systems that are unfair. Systems operated and maintained by people. Saying life's not fair is an abdication of responsibility, as far as I'm concerned. There are people who do unfair things and blame it on life. But the life they're blaming is a life by systemic design. A systemic design that allows them to benefit from unfairness. You see, you look at a twat like Bobby Kotick, or a twat like Yves Jumeau, or a twat like Android Wilson, and you're looking at a twat who doesn't want the subject of fairness to be in the discussion. Twats who, in fact, don't like the concept of right and wrong to be part of the discussion, and have done a very good job of keeping that topic far away from the unfair, wrong things they do. And if I'm honest, I've never really cared for that, and it's been really bothering me lately. So I've got this retrospective of Dead Island that I've been planning for months. I've got the script written, but then I had an Amphexa-fueled need to write this brand new script just before I was going to record that one. And when it comes to ADHD, you've really got to go with the flow, so here we are. This video was very much put together on a whim, but it's something that's been on my mind for a few weeks now, so I do very much hope you enjoy. Enjoy! Do it! The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he doesn't exist.
That's a good trick.
A neat trick, but not what I'd put in his top 10 if I were honest.
Number 2.
Give us number 2.
Big ass ham.
For example, one of the devil's all-time brilliant swindles was convincing the world that morality has no place in an economy. Having done this job for as long as I have, criticising the corporate destruction of the video game industry and by extension the world at large, I've been hesitant to make one particular argument, one I consider to be the most important and yet the least compelling. Rarely, if ever, will you have heard me utter this three-word rebuttal to the cruelty, the predation, the creative vandalism witnessed in the past several decades of hyper-capitalistic ruination, at least not without a whole bunch of added qualifiers. But here's the argument in its totality. Because it's wrong. More than any other point I could make about the poisoned well that is the mainstream game industry, I believe in because it's wrong with all my heart. And I believe in many cases it should be enough. Why shouldn't Microsoft lay off tens of thousands of people while spending billions on acquiring other companies and wrecking those too? Because it's wrong. Why shouldn't video games be monetized to excess, filled with manipulative in-app purchases? Because it's wrong. Why should investors and executives who have neither the requisite experience nor knowledge have full and final creative control over the media that gets made and quote-unquote earn more money than the people what make it? Because it's bloody wrong. I can talk about the financial short-sightedness of a decision, the unsustainability of a business model, the harm an act can do as a proven empirical issue, but I can't simply say it is immoral.
Isn't that immoral?
I can't just say it's, like, not cool. I can't begin and end the argument with, that's fucked up. Shame I can't, these videos would be a lot quicker to make. The rise of regurgitative AI, however, has eroded at least a little of the impenetrable wall that's kept discussions of morality quarantined from discussions of business. With degenerative AI being so wholly corrupt, alongside being a grotesque money sink that only the Epstein class actually asked for, the moral bankruptcy of the technology and its technocratic handlers is a lot easier to focus on. Before we get there, however, we must look at what a great job the money brains in charge have done until now of keeping "because it's wrong" impotent as a statement. Companies exist to make money. It's the longest running play in the Corpo's handbook, and the first thing I was ever told when my work started going after the rolling snowball of video game monetization. In the Proclaimer's mind, this argument shuts down any and all potential clapback because not only is it quite literally true, it allows corporations to ignore every point made against them that isn't strictly fiscal. For nigh on 20 years, this has formed the basis of pro-corpo ideology, and the online thralls of video game publishers have repeated it uncritically for just as long. So what if it's harmful? That's not a video game publisher's problem because companies exist to make money. You don't like predatory monetization? Tough. Companies exist to make money, and if microtransactions achieve this singular goal, they have to do it. You know what's funny is I only just realised this while writing the script. I'm habitually embellishing the pro-corpo argument to make this video more interesting, and I found myself struggling in the process because nobody has ever truly expanded their argument the way I've just attempted to. I'm giving them too much credit by trying. Corpos never speak beyond companies exist to make money, and in attempting to extrapolate it myself, I can understand exactly why. To quote literally any kick streamer getting called out for doing something fucked up in public, it's not that deep, bro. Take for example what is perhaps the most infamous use of the argument, certainly one of the most substantive, which was Naughty Dog's justification of Uncharted 3's online pass. Remember those failed things that didn't make any fucking money? We're giving out a huge amount of content, and part of the reason for the online pass is that when that stuff goes online, it isn't free. We have to pay for servers and all this different stuff to maintain it, and so at some point, you know, games have to make money. It is a business, and we just want to be able to continue to provide that kind of content. It's the closest I've ever seen to the argument sounding reasonable, but when you look at it, it's utter bollocks. It acts as if the game itself didn't cost any money to purchase, going on about how they're giving out content. It fails to note all the other revenue streams, including merch and that fucking embarrassing Subway commercial. It's also not what the online pass was supposed to be for. Fact is, Uncharted was already a huge moneymaker for Sony. It was making money, but Naughty Dog had no other justification apart from the oldest play. Games have to make money. When you cut out all the fluff in what's said, that's all it comes down to. It is a business, which ultimately becomes the justification in and of itself. By centering the discussion around matters of pure business, it forces critics to argue on those terms. Critics have to do what I just did, point out how a game has made money, rather than simply say online passes were a mean-spirited and unnecessary punishment for those who couldn't afford brand new games. That it was just a shitty thing to do. It punished brand new buyers too, but that's beside today's point. In essence, companies exist to make money is simply a reworded version of an older, more contentious statement: the ends justify the means. No CEO would say that verbatim without sounding like a supervillain. I mean, they might do these days. We've got a company called Palantir. But make no mistake, that is exactly what is being said when they claim companies exist to make money. It is a literal one-to-one parallel. Profit is the ends, the company's actions are the means. The ends justify the means. In order for this argument to hold any water whatsoever, however, you have to believe several unspoken supporting claims. That it's okay for companies to exist in this way, that merely existing is a valid reason to do anything, and most crucially, that factors such as right and wrong are unimportant or are at least superseded by financial goals. People can and do believe these things, and have so subscribed to that belief that they consider any other argument laughable. Even those who don't necessarily agree with all this pro-corporate bullshit might scoff at any notion of morality being brought into a debate about corporate greed because, well, it's just not all that compelling, is it? It's not going to move the needle. It's not based on fact and logic. Not when the debate has been so centered on profit and the need to make it. Certainly not when you can actually successfully argue against corporate greed on those terms as well. But I'm actually fighting the urge to speak on those terms throughout this entire video. I mean, it's so tempting to jump the gun and bring up the many great points one can make about how exponential growth is a destructive myth, how much money is wasted every year on unprofitable fads. But I've brought up such things many times before, and that's not what we're here for right now. I want to sweep aside the entire financial aspect, which we will do. But first, let's talk business.
Don't take it personal.
Where the phrase companies exist to make money places importance on the behaviour of corporations by painting them as necessary for survival, another phrase effectively minimises it. It's nothing personal, it's just business. This is one of those stock phrases we see in media, and more often than not, it's actually used to portray certain attitudes and actions in a negative light. I'm sure you've read or watched a dozen stories in which an antagonist has uttered those exact words while doing something callous or cruel, a hitman about to kill somebody they know, a heartless executive screwing over their business partner, an opportunist ruining a co-worker's career, that sort of thing. However, these phrases reflect, and in some cases even normalise, the attitudes of those who truly do compartmentalise the notions of business and humanity. In order to do some of the things they do, I believe profiteers have to maintain the belief that what they're doing is nothing personal, just business. Whether it's poisoning an entire community's water supply, as we've seen in places like Flint, Michigan, or for-profit healthcare and prisons cutting costs at the expense of people's lives, or wholesale robbing resources and annihilating the environment with energy-slurping data centers, there are acts of brutality being committed in front of us all with such shameless abandon that it cannot be done without filing one's humanity away in a neat little box and kept well away from one's money-making objectives. Sure, it's easy to argue that every executive is like a sociopath or whatever, but I think that's too easy. For one, I reckon you'll find many sociopaths a lot smarter than the average executive. Now, while I reckon there are plenty of executives who do lack any moral compass, I think we've seen plenty of execs who genuinely want to believe they're good people. At the very least, most humans want to be seen as good, and there's absolutely no way for these fuckers to do that without extracting the humanity from their actions. Layoffs are one of the clearest indicators of this. In their fantastical pursuit of infinite growth, executives routinely lay off hundreds of people at a time. Hundreds of people losing their livelihoods through no fault of their own, often because their hard work contributed to a company's success and the company needs to maintain an illusion of beating that success. It's a lie that layoffs only occur when a business is doing poorly, as we've seen during the tech industry's malignant overgrowth and the tens of thousands of jobs taken away in the process. Layoffs are at epidemic levels, all while CEOs add billions to their net worth and boast of unprecedented revenue. In one of the most insidious aspects of public company practice, the workforce is punished for its own high performance. You know, since it's the people doing the work who make the products that generate the revenue, which executives use to reward themselves. This horrific cruelty is not personal, though. It's just business. As I've explained in prior works, rarely are layoffs presented in the news as anything other than a blameless phenomenon, most notably with headlines that describe companies being hit with layoffs. It's not a fucking natural disaster that hits a company though, it's human beings making a conscious decision to ruin other human beings' lives when they could maybe stop increasing their own pay packets for once in their parasitic careers. Executives need the lie though. The ones who still retain a shred of conscience need it to sleep at night. The ones who burned the good out of themselves need it to convince you they have a conscience. The things they do have to be dehumanized. Layoffs have to be a normal event, as impersonal as the weather changing. Just business. They have to happen to companies, and they have to take out an amorphous chunk of employees, a statistic, not individuals. It cannot under any circumstances be something that people did to people, because it's nothing personal, it's business, and if it were the other way around, they'd be fucking monsters.
I need you to tell me that I'm a good person. I know that I can be selfish and narcissistic and...
It is amazing what some of us are capable of when the rules no longer apply. And by some of us, I mean a few rich
Skeleton warriors!
Regulations are written in blood. A regulation is almost always the result of something a business did because the law never said it couldn't, and the harm being so great it brought the hammer down. It costs money to initiate health and safety measures. It severs revenue streams to have restrictions on selling to vulnerable people like children, and we can't have that, can we? We're living in a fucking perilous age. Deregulation is on the rise, and corpos are jumping on every opportunity to cut corners, sell cheap garbage, and make the world a less safe place. The wonderful Kaylin Conrad recently put out an important video about how the biggest AI companies in the world are trying to pass a bill that will grant them immunity from the harm their evil products are doing. Not will do, they are pulling off this evil right now, taking advantage of the lack of regulation the same way the alcohol industry did, the tobacco industry did, how every industry has when they had something for which the law wasn't yet built to cover. Why am I bringing this up? Because executives don't want to recognize any authority other than themselves. In the socio-economic system we have, a billionaire is the closest thing on earth to a god. And who dares tell a god what to do?
Suffering for your gods is your only purpose.
Corpos have worked very hard to protect themselves from every rule that applies to the rest of us, but there's one system of rules they can't buy their way out of. Rules that determine what makes a good person and what makes a bad person. I mean, they can pay off evangelical pastors in exchange for a sloppy, exonerating blowjob, but I don't think it counts. Of course these besooted leeches want to divorce business from morality. Of course they want to dehumanize even themselves by having us focus on the nebulous concept of a company's existence. And of course they want a separation of personal and business matters. Because they are immoral fucking scumbags and they don't want you to think that's relevant. They do indeed wish to be free from the constraints of petty morality, and only them, of course. You can call the queers sinful. You can claim black people are all criminals. You can spout about the moral decay of society all day fucking long, and many of the tech pros committing daily atrocities love to do it too. But they're exempt. You see, what they do is business, and business is not a moral subject. This is why minorities who have hurt nobody are subject to harsher and harsher legislation, while ChatGPT, which has so far taught several children how to commit suicide and helped orchestrate at least one school shooting, has faced zero fucking penalty whatsoever. One issue has been framed by a moral panic, the other has not. Seriously, do check out Kaylin Conrad's videos on AI. Some of them are terrifying, and the rest are just heartbreaking. The moral arguments against what OpenAI and its filthy ilk continue to do are numerous, damning, and frustratingly irrelevant. Why should it be irrelevant, though? Why the fuck should we not criticize OpenAI for its heartlessness, its cruelty? If the propagandistic groundwork hadn't been so steadily laid, if this socio-economic system hadn't so thoroughly strangled all sense and decency out of the discourse, because it's wrong would be seen as a far more valid and relevant point than it's just business. Because it's wrong is not seen as good enough because corporate behaviour simply cannot withstand that brand of scrutiny. It's wrong to encourage children to gamble, so the loot boxes in the rated for kids FIFA games simply isn't gambling. It's wrong to convince someone with learning difficulties to give you money they can't afford, so they simply aren't counted when publishers tell you their microtransactions only affect a small number of whales. It's wrong to plagiarise, wrong to steal a city's water supply, wrong to replace hardworking artists with a soulless algorithm, wrong to advise on a school shooting, so the concept of right and wrong itself is discredited in all matters regarding AI. My go-to retort for the justification that companies exist to make money has always been to point out everything that exists to do something that we don't tolerate. Jeffrey Epstein existed to fuck kids. Both lived and died for it. Didn't make him cool. Well, I guess that's not going to convince tech bros, since they're all, you know, in on the nonce racket, but the point stands. Deadly viruses exist to replicate at the expense of life on Earth, and they're not tolerated. Hell, corporations aren't even exclusive in their ends. Organised crime exists to make money, cults exist to make money, human traffickers exist to... Oh wait, we're talking about executives again, but you get the point. Existing to make money simply is no excuse for doing awful things, is it? Do they let drug dealers off the hook if their defence is, well, I got paid? No. Though if you ask me, a dealer does a lot less fucking harm in a lifetime than Sam fucking Altman does every day. Like, I'm not even being facetious. I consider drug dealing a legitimate business. You might want to say I'm being absurd right now, and I agree, it is an absurd fucking excuse, isn't it? You can also argue that morality is subjective, which is true, but is it any more or less subjective than which seller of addictive substances is a business and which is a criminal enterprise? Is it any more subjective than deciding the legal way you can poison a public water supply? Is it any more subjective than what counts as copyright infringement these days? I can tell you one thing, it's certainly a lot less fucking arbitrary. Just look at all the special exceptions AI is getting from legislators right now. The theft it's allowed to do, the health and safety regulations it's allowed to skirt. And you tell me if judging an act on basic right and wrong is less valid than judging it based on how rich the perpetrator is. We can argue over the particulars, but that is not the point. The point is, whether something's right or wrong currently doesn't factor at all into corporate decision making, and it just fucking should. Fairness is not a stupid thing to consider. We've just been convinced it is by people who have something to lose by being fair. At least subscribe to the most basic tenet of all. Do no harm. Why is that too much to fucking ask? Another thing I've said about companies existing to make money is that the statement by itself is an indictment, not a justification. Having such an inhuman, single-minded drive to profit at the expense of all other factors is not noble, not laudable, not okay, not anything other than distinctly antisocial behaviour, and I don't mean that in a medical sense. I mean it is distinctly antithetical to society. It is against people. Adversarial. The proof is in literally all of the damage we've touched upon today and all of the damage we haven't. The disenfranchisement of whole communities, the health problems caused by their products and pollutants, the support of literal genocide. Microsoft. The transfer of wealth during times of crisis. The fucking billionaire paedophile rings. The corpo mindset is so unable to consider anything but the most gains with the least investment that it is by its very nature inhumane, malicious and bereft of decency. And the corpo mindset doesn't want you to think about that. Executives don't want you to criticize what they're doing by saying it's wrong, because if you did, they know you'd be right. So there you go, it's a video for you, innit? As I said near the beginning, I think AI might help to reframe the discussion somewhat, because so much of what it's doing is, by every traditional measure, objectively morally wrong. It plagiarizes, it plots crimes and suicides, it's destroying entire communities, it's a scam, it only exists for investors, and it's not fair. It's not fair. And it's okay to say that. And it's a lack of fairness by itself is a valid argument. So thank God for me. This is Hi Steph saying bye, Steph. And I'll see you next time with that Dead Island video.